Now we have our environments and the software setup done. The next stage is to actually create a serverless ChatGPT API. Okay, now we'll just proceed further with this, and in this particular session, we will see how to create that. So basically, an API that we create, which will enable us to, ping the open API for any sort of responses that we expect the API to give us. Okay. So unlike ChatGPT, like we enter there some prompts and we get the particular response. Okay. Now, if that was a bit confusing, again, we can just refer to the particular introduction session. Okay, therein we have set up how can we, build the APIs. So basically, we can build an Azure function that can ping the API, it can ask questions, get the answers back. Okay, and this is how we can make it work with any other integrations. Okay, so you can basically go ahead and create that in the Visual Studio application. So the first thing we need to do is we need to actually make sure before we even get into the Azure function or even the serverless functions, we need to make sure that we can actually work with the open AI API. Okay, so that is the first most thing that we need to check out over here. So let's proceed with this. Okay, now what we'll do is I'll go to the browser here wherein I have the chat GPT open in this particular case. Okay, and what are we going to do is we are going here for the open AI API. Let me open that into another tab. Okay, let me just check out with this. Okay, this is how we can go up here. Let's say explore. So get started. Okay, now I'll continue with the Google account. Okay, this is where I am currently. Okay, now let's go to the documentation here. And in this, we have something known as authentication. Okay, now this is a very good guide, as to how actually to use the OpenAI API in this case. Okay, so this is the whole documentation that's available. And again, it's very easy. You can just change the language that you want to be using. Okay, so let's say, for example, you can just check out here. You can copy the codes which are there. Okay, so let's say we go to some kind of examples which are available. You can also check out the models which are available here. Okay, so in this, if we just proceed down here, you can use any particular language code to work with it. Okay, so it is really very much simple to use it. Nothing as such much you have to do for exploring this. Okay, if you have multiple language installed, you can just use this particular codes and go ahead executing them. It is as simple as that. Okay, so in our case we would be using Python, so that is how we have all the codes in Python that we can directly use it. Okay, so again, basically this is just a complete guide which will help you. So you can use this as a reference material. Okay, whenever like you're creating your own apps. Okay, in our case, you will be having all the reference materials available, whatever we are creating in this particular course. It's very much available there. It's not difficult to understand. It is really very, very easy. Okay, there are just a few configurations which needs to be done, and it's not that difficult that you will not be able to do it or something. It's really easy. So let's create a new file. Okay, so I'll go back to my Visual Studio Code here. Okay, And let's say in this, I am creating a new file. Let's say API access.py. Okay, now this is the particular file. Okay, the first thing that we need to do is we need to actually install a library that is called as OpenAI, which will be useful for accessing the OpenAI API. Okay, so the very first thing we would be doing is installing this particular library. So I'll go back to my terminal over here. Okay, and once you are in the terminal window, okay, you can just, if you want, you can open a new one, or you can work in the same one. Okay, or you want to just open up this in a full screen mode, even that is possible. You want to minimize this, even that is possible. Whatever, like whatever you want to do it there. Okay, so I'm going to install the OpenAI. So for that, we will be using the option that is pip. In that, we will be using pip install. And then I'm giving here the option to install the OpenAI, that is OpenAI. I press enter and it is connecting to OpenAI. You can see it's actually installing the OpenAI library of the Python functions, okay, that we would be needing. So all these libraries it has already installed for us, okay, that we wanted. So you can see it is very much simple. Now we can just make it so easier for us to access the OpenAI API using Python. So it is very much simple. The same steps have been given inside the documentation that I had shown you earlier also. Okay, so it's just a bridge that allows us to connect to the open AI services. Okay, it's so simple. We have already installed all the libraries which were needed, and now we are good to go. Okay, it may take time in your case depending on your internet speed and everything, but in my case it has completely finished installing all the necessary libraries. Okay, just with one command, that is pip install OpenAI. Okay, so I would just like to show you here in the introduction part. Let's say for any kind of authentication that is required, you can just check here. Okay, if you just go to the API reference, see pip install OpenAI. Okay, so we have already done this. If you need the Node.js library, you can go for nmp install OpenAI. Okay, now the next thing that we will need to do is we need to connect to the OpenAI API, and we need to identify who we are. Okay, so basically you will be needing a kind of key to connect it. So like your OpenAI is basically requiring you to pass an API key. Okay, so what I want everyone to do is you can go to the personal over here. Okay, and you can go to the view API keys. Click here and you can go ahead for creating a secret key. Okay, now once you create this, okay, you can give here a name. Say, let's say my personal key. Create a secret key and you will get this key over here. You won't be able to view it again, so do not forget to copy this. Okay, and let's say I am going into Notepad and going to paste this here, because I won't be able to view this key again. It is created once for me. That's the key name that I have given, and that is the exact key address what it is.